Well, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me in this video. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach this morning. Rather than talking about forms, rather than talking about legal issues, rather than talk about RICO issues and trends in the industry, I want to talk a little bit about the market and the marketplace that we're in right now. I think all of you know that the market is changing. We're seeing a very different market than we were a year ago or even 6 months ago. The market is slowing. And we're seeing the media pick up on that. And of course, there's a media frenzy. And if you want to get really depressed, read the news or listen to it on television. They'll talk to you about the bubble bursting. They'll talk to you about the bottom falling out of the market and so on and so forth. And you read all kinds of predictions. There's predicting that the market's going to be flat. They're predicting that the prices will drop anywhere from what we gain this year, we'll lose this year, to a 40% drop in price. Actually, one national real estate company is predicting a price increase this year, and so is CMHC. So nobody seems to know. Everybody's predicting things. But one thing we do know is that there's more inventory coming on, and there's fewer buyers, and we're seeing some moderation in price. Those things are factual. And we need to take a look at what's happening and what opportunities that makes available to us. I read recently, and I believe this, I thought it was rather surprising, 35% of homeowners in Canada own more than one home. And as you know, in real estate, we've got four categories. We've got investor, we've got speculator, we've got developer, and we've got renovator. And there are four different categories, and the market changing impacts them differently. We had, maybe a year ago, we had an entry-level property, and there was multiple offers that came in. And one of the salespeople out of Toronto that brought in an offer said to the listing agent, he said, you know, if my buyer is successful, that'll be 54 properties that he's bought in St. Catharines. And of course, you see these flyers that come around, you know, we'll buy your house and no commission and all this sort of thing. There's an awful lot of interest on speculators. Now, unlike the renovator, unlike the developer, a speculator is counting on a change in the market. And if the market stops giving signals that it's going to be going up and up and up remarkably quickly, the speculators are the first ones to drop out. And I would think that in the last 2 years, between 25 and 40% of the purchases that have gone on in St. Catharines and around the Golden Horseshoe are speculators. And so when the market slows, because the signals sent out of Ottawa, because of running out of steam, because of interest rates, there's a number of reasons, the speculators drop out. And what that means is 25 to 40% of your buyers are no longer in the market. And of course, that creates a huge hole in the marketplace. You're very, very vulnerable. And that's when you get a run up, you often get a run down, and it's because of your speculators. And in some cases, the speculators will throw their property back on the market to cash in, and that creates an added surplus. And so it's a challenge. Now, I want to say, I believe in real estate. I thoroughly believe in real estate. And I believe there's never a bad time to buy, unless you're a speculator. And I think the speculators are going to be off the table for a while until we see the market back appreciating again. But for all the rest of the buyers, it's a great time. If you're a move up, move around, if you're changing, if you own a home, you're going to sell a home and buy a home, it's a wonderful time to buy. You know, you say, well, maybe the prices are going to drop. Well, maybe they are. Suppose they are. That means that the house you're going to buy, you could get cheaper, but the house you're going to sell, you'll get less for it. It's a wash. So now's the time to buy. If you're a first-time buyer, you say, well, interest rates are creeping up. Well, I might be able to get it a little bit cheaper a little later, but I might have to pay more in interest rates. It's a wash. It's a great time to buy. Regardless of what you are in the marketplace, it's a great time to buy. But I want to also tell you that I've been through a lot of markets over the years. I've seen 20+% interest rates and going up. I've seen 0% down required. I've seen a surplus of inventory where only 1/3 of properties ever sell, all kinds of them. And I want to tell you that I see the opportunity is, as a real estate agent, it's to say in any marketplace, when you take a listing, rather than throwing a sign in the line and waiting for somebody else to come along and sell it, it's to say, now who can I sell this to? If you list a multifamily, then you need to think about somebody who's self-employed. I remember a lawyer friend of mine saying to me one time, you know, I should have done what you did and bought property back when it was cheap. Well, it's all relative. It's always cheap. It's always expensive compared to yesterday or compared to tomorrow. He should have invested in real estate, and I should have talked to him about it. I talked to a doctor friend of mine who's telling me about how the woes of being a doctor and how the government's clawing back in fees and so on. And I should have sat down and said to him, it's not what you earn, it's what you retain and what you do with it, and talking about investment properties and building an investment portfolio. You need to do that. Let's suppose you list a ranch-style house. Then you need to find a senior who's getting tired of stairs, live in a multi-level home. They should live in a single-family home or a single-level home. You know what? Take your parents or take somebody you know who isn't even in the market. Say, listen, I want you to do me a favor. I know you're not thinking of buying, but I want to run you through a house, and I want your reaction to it. I want to see, the pros and cons from another set of eyes. Take them through. That's what builders do. They hold their houses open. People go to get decorating ideas, and they look around and they say, we can't create this because of the difference in floor plan. Maybe we should sell our house and buy. And they create a desire. And you'll find, by talking to the self-employed, you'll create a desire for them to invest. By talking to the senior, you'll create a desire for them to move into a single floor plan home. And you can create desire. And so that's something you need to start thinking about. And the difference, if you're selling to somebody who's moving into a nursing home, for example, house is vacant, talk to them about being a possibility of a vendor take-back. They're going to want to invest their money somewhere. A chunk of cash does them no good. And you can give them a better interest rate than the banks and give your buyer a better break than he's going to get on a mortgage rate. The difference between the people who are going to fly and the people who are not going to fly is the people who take a listing and say, who can I sell this to, and what innovative thing can I do to create a desire and to create an opportunity. I remember working with an agent some years ago, and we had a couple who wanted to buy a home, and the seller was adamant that he wanted more than the house was worth. He had this figure in mind, absolutely what he wanted. It was back when interest rates were about 11.5%, and the agent said to me, my seller is stuck in this price. There's not much we can do, but he'd hold a mortgage, and I bet we can get him to hold a mortgage at no interest rate. Well, we negotiated that, put the deal together, and the buyer paid about $10,000 more than the house was worth and saved about $25,000 in interest over the course of the 3 or 5 years that the vendor held a mortgage. There's all kinds of opportunities. But it brings me to one last thing I want to leave with you. And that's a challenge. One of the things that will screw up the marketplace quicker than anything else is government interference. We're seeing them playing with interest rates, and the interest rate shouldn't be a problem. They're talking about going up about 2%, but there's a cushion of the stress test, and the stress test should go away. It was designed to insulate for an increase in rates. So the rates go up 2%, the stress test is gone. They're qualifying for the same thing they're qualifying for now. Having said that, the government, and as you know, they're talking about getting rid of blind bidding. We won't get into that today. And I like the provincial of Ford's attitude. He said, I think it should be up to the seller how they want to do it. It's their house. They can decide what they want to do, whether they want people to know what the bids are or whether they want it to be a blind bid. It's up to the homeowner. But one of the things I'm seeing, and I'm seeing RICO lead the charge here, is this business about dual agency. And they're feeling like they don't like the idea of dual agency, and I'll tell you where I think they're going. And I think what they're wanting to do is redefine agency as the salesperson, not the company. And because the company just doesn't fit under the definition of agency, where one person knows what the other person knows. And you can see it in the change with RICO, where they're allowing the salesperson now to be called an agent. And I think they're going to end up with the individual person being called the agent, and then they're going to say the agent isn't allowed to double end. And that would be a travesty. Remember, when you take a listing, you don't want to say to the seller, now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, thank you for the listing. The one thing I promise I'll never do is sell it. The obligation and opportunity on your part is specifically to do that, to sell it. So lobby against any move in that direction and look for an opportunity. And moving forward as the market transitions, as the market changes, the people who are really going to excel in this marketplace are the people who can take the ball and run with it. The people who can take a look at a listing and say, where can I find a buyer? And they can actually find a buyer and fit a buyer and seller together. And you'll find that there's great opportunities ahead. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I look forward to talking to you again next week.